Fantasy Springs is currently taking the world by storm with its incredible theming, breathtaking attractions, and unbelievable usage of technology. But if you're waiting for these attractions to arrive in a Disney park a little closer to home, then I wouldn't hold your breath. Chances are that Fantasy Springs isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and here's why. When Tokyo Disneyland first opened in 1982, it was essentially a greatest hits version of the Magic Kingdom. The park was not owned by Disney and instead operated under a licensing agreement with the Oriental Land Company. Disney was running short on money due to the constantly ballooning cost of Epcot Center, so they quickly jumped aboard the idea of another company building a park and paying them royalties for using their name and brands. To design their new park, OLC executives wandered the Magic Kingdom and Disneyland, pointing out attractions that they wanted to see in Japan. And that's exactly what they got. This trend continued well after opening. Eventually, Tokyo Disneyland was full of Disney staples. The Jungle Cruise, Tiki Room, Space Mountain, Haunted Mansion, Splash Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, and more. If it was popular, chances are Tokyo Disneyland had it. Only 2 original attractions were within the park on opening day. First was a 200-degree film attraction called The Eternal Sea that was not all that popular and a year later would be replaced by the Epcot Magic Journeys film instead. The other original attraction is the more interesting one. Meet the World was a rotating theater attraction designed specifically to be shared between Japan and the United States, with the US version set to open at Epcot for opening day in 1982, before opening for Tokyo Disneyland's opening day a year after in 1983. Unfortunately, the Epcot version of this rotating theater show had miscalculations in the construction plans, and the show building could not support the weight of the show, so the already over-budgeted Epcot would simply cancel the plans, leaving the Japan Pavilion attractionless to this day. Over the following years, Tokyo Disney would continue their method of copying the most successful additions from the US parks, adding Big Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, and Mickey's Toontown. But things started to change for the Tokyo Disney Resort around the turn of the millennia. On the 1st of September 2000, Tokyo Disneyland debuted its newest attraction known as Pooh's Honey Hunt. Whilst this attraction would follow a similar storyline to the Magic Kingdom, the technology behind the ride was a first of its kind. The attraction introduced a unique trackless ride system, which whilst today is a commonplace feature in popular rides such as Rise of the Resistance and Mystic Manor, it was an incredible technological advancement for the time. Just like how you could help us advance our channel in reaching 100,000 subscribers by subscribing and giving us a cheeky like. But back to Pooh's Honey Hunt, the attraction was met with public and critical acclaim. Even 24 years on, the ride garners some of the longest waits for the entire resort. Despite this, the ride has not been replicated anywhere else, even though Disney went on to create 3 more technically inferior Winnie the Pooh rides around the world at Disneyland, Hong Kong Disneyland, and Shanghai Disneyland after the Tokyo version opened. The likely reason is that Pooh's Honey Hunt cost an astronomical $130 million that OLC was happy to pay, whilst Disneyland's inferior Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh cost a measly $30 million. Pooh's Honey Hunt would go on to put Tokyo Disneyland on the map for a lot of internationals, and can be seen as the turning point for the resort wanting more original attractions. Just a year after Pooh's Honey Hunt opened, Tokyo Disney officially unveiled the resort's second gate that took the world by storm, Tokyo DisneySea. The revolutionary theme park introduced a level of theming and immersion the likes that the world had never seen before, and permanently raised the bar for the entire industry. Though it was a close call with Tokyo DisneySea, as they were originally meant to debut something completely different. Disney proposed that Tokyo construct a version of Disney MGM Studios, but apparently executives from Oriental Land Company visited the park around the early 90s and despised it so much that they shelved the idea. Disney would instead propose a new version of the cancelled Long Beach, California plans for a 7 Seas-based Disney park, and the rest is history. Pooh's Honey Hunt and Tokyo DisneySea helped the Tokyo Disney Resort forge its own identity on the world stage. Despite this, the resort continued to bring in copies of the more popular attractions from around the world, though in doing so ensured that each had its own distinct feeling and flavor compared to the originals. Tower of Terror and Soaring were introduced to Tokyo DisneySea, but are completely original iterations of the attraction. Likewise, Journey to the Center of the Earth uses familiar ride technology in a completely new way, and Indiana Jones Adventure is a completely different take on the Disneyland classic, especially with all of the blue. Despite introducing a tremendous amount of critically acclaimed additions, no attraction designed specifically for the Tokyo Disney Resort has ever been built elsewhere around the world. And a lot of that has to do with exclusivity agreements between the Oriental Land Company and Disney. Exclusivity agreements exist all around the world to give each Disney resort a fighting chance to have its own identity. Generally, this is for a period of 5 to 7 years where new additions can't be copied into other Disney parks. For example, Shanghai Disneyland has a 5-year exclusivity on any new attractions built in that park, which is why Tron Light Cycle Power Run was originally set to open in 2021 for the 50th anniversary of the Magic Kingdom, exactly 5 years after it opened at Shanghai Disneyland. The reason behind these agreements is that in most of the international parks, Disney is a co-owner of the property, shared with relevant local governments who split the development and construction costs of new attractions and experiences. So it makes sense these governments don't want Disney to turn around and immediately build the same ride elsewhere at their expense. A lot of this is technically speculative, as the public often isn't privy to the official contracts, but for all we know, there are even more stringent agreements in place for certain attractions, which might explain why we've never had replication of things like Mystic Manor, which has long been touted as one of Disney's best rides in recent history. It should also be noted that many attractions built for overseas parks fill a specific regional need. Take Tron Light Cycle Power Run, for example, which is Shanghai's Space Mountain equivalent. The park constructed this coaster specifically to show off the fact that it is, in fact, a roller coaster. Hong Kong Disneyland long faced an issue where people didn't realize Space Mountain was a roller coaster, and after taking their seats were faced with a rather big surprise. It was not uncommon to have guests either refuse to get on the ride completely or come off looking like they had just seen their own ghost. In a similar vein, Fantasy Springs was also constructed out of necessity. Whilst Tokyo DisneySea is incredible, one of the biggest criticisms was that it has a severe lack of recognizable Disney properties. When the park opened, only one land was fully Disney themed with Mermaid Lagoon. The rest had one ride featuring an IP, or in most cases, no Disney properties to be seen anywhere. In recent years though, guests seem to be demanding more Disney at DisneySea, seen with additions such as Toy Story Mania and Nemo and Friends Sea Rider. Fantasy Springs allowed for a best of both worlds situation, where the park added significant amounts of new capacity and answered any guest complaints that the park wasn't Disney enough. With all of this in mind, taking the additions of Frozen and Peter Pan at Fantasy Springs and placing them in the US Disney parks would generate some problems. Both Disneyland and Walt Disney World have existing Peter Pan attractions, which would ultimately need to be closed to include this new version. But the space requirements demand a plot much bigger than the existing Peter Pan ride, so you'd not only need to close these attractions, but find space around the parks to put them. Likewise, Frozen could go to Disneyland if you found the space, but couldn't go to Walt Disney World as Frozen Ever After already exists, and with Disney demanding roughly 30 years out of each attraction, it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Tangled is the wild card here though. Having the smallest space requirements and no existing attractions at either Disneyland or Walt Disney World outside of the world's best themed toilets, Tangled could be placed at either of these resorts. But considering the already glowing reception for this ride, I doubt OLC will let Disney build this attraction anywhere else anytime soon. But there could possibly, but not really, but maybe, but very likely not be a chance at Disneyland. Disneyland Forward has just been approved by the Anaheim City Council, and people are already talking about how Fantasy Springs might be coming to the Disneyland Resort as a result of this approval. When specifically talking about the plans, Disney has noted the ability to build expansions such as Fantasy Springs, and the Tangled ride from Tokyo can even be seen in the Disneyland Forward proposal. However, as we've discussed before, Disneyland Forward is just a city ordinance changing project, with some fancy graphics and an exciting sounding name. Now that it has been officially approved, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But we won't be holding our breath for anything from Fantasy Springs making its way to Disneyland Forward. The Tokyo Disney Resort also makes the Walt Disney Company an absurd amount of money, all of which is essentially pure profit to them. Tokyo is licensed, meaning that Disney gets a cut of every ticket, every merchandise item, and every food or drink item sold within the park. OLC also pays Imagineering to design and build attractions for them. It is rumored that Disney will often approach OLC to pitch new ideas and park expansions to them in the hope that they will sign another big expensive contract that will put money straight into Disney's pockets. Fantasy Springs is rumored to cost around 320 billion yen, or around 2.1 billion US dollars, a significant amount of which will come back to Disney through their designs and ultimate cuts of park tickets and anything sold within the land. It is very much in Disney's best interest to maintain a positive relationship with the Oriental Land Company, and this could be another driving factor behind the fact that we've never seen an exclusive edition leave the resort as a good faith gesture from Disney to OLC. Ultimately, Fantasy Springs addressed two core issues for Tokyo DisneySea: introduce more Disney characters and increase park capacity. At the cost of over $2 billion, Disney has very little reason to introduce this expansion stateside. Both Disney and Oriental Land Company have the resources to know exactly what their guests want. The reality is that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is the United States Fantasy Springs. It addressed capacity at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, but also introduced new experiential spend-in opportunities such as the lightsaber experience and the Droid Workshop, which more and more millennial guests were demanding from Disney. Opportunities that Fantasy Springs lacks due to differences in guest spending habits and expectations between countries and cultures. A genuine question is, do you really want the US Disney parks to be a collection of attractions built for different cultures and guest expectations simply because the rides overseas look impressive on video? We've raised this question before in a video specifically on this subject, and the comments were a mixed bag of people agreeing with us and others who believe it was unfair for other parks to have toys that they wanted to play with. If I had a choice between an attraction I can already ride elsewhere in the world or a brand new bespoke experience built specifically for my home park, I know what I would pick. While it seems Disney themselves love the idea of copying and pasting attractions between each park to make a homogeneous mix where every resort almost feels exactly the same, Tokyo Disney continues to do their own thing, and we're incredibly grateful for it. We're super excited to check out Fantasy Springs later in the year at the Tokyo Disney Resort, the only place you'll likely ever be able to experience it. But, over to you. What are your thoughts on Fantasy Springs? And do you want it brought to a theme park closer to your home? Let us know in the comments. And to further support us and our hot takes, be sure to check out our Patreon for exclusive content. For ReviewTyme, I'm Dom. Thanks for watching.